All right, I am in a hotel in Denver, Colorado. Just got done with a run, felt pretty good. Trying to maintain my level of fitness while I'm on the road. So I've been doing this aviation thing for about 14 years now. And although I would argue that I haven't had like an illustrious career, I would say that I've had a pretty diverse background. I've been fortunate to be able to fly helicopters, single engine planes, multi-engine planes, a few different variations of jets. I've flown in combat. Yeah! I flew for the regionals, had some corporate experience, and now I fly for a mainline carrier or a legacy carrier or whatever you want to call it. And as such, I get asked a lot, how do you decide what job to pursue? Do you go corporate? Do you go more of the mainline world? Do you chase the aircraft? Do you chase the base? Do you chase the money? Do you chase the quality of life? Do you commute? And honestly, it's just not an easy answer. And because it's not an easy answer, over the past few years, I've kind of created my own system of chart and graphical representations, which help me to make the decision as to what job in aviation I should pursue. And I really want to share those with you today. Now, there are a couple qualifiers that I want to point out. And first and foremost, I have never made a career decision where my family wasn't at the forefront of that decision. That's my number one priority. Secondly, because we wanted to be near family, Ashley and I made the decision that we were going to move to Dahlonega, Georgia. And I am unwilling to budge on those two things. And this leads me into my first little chart that I developed. On my first YouTube channel that I ever had that I don't really manage anymore, I made a 5-part little mini series about my time up at Infinity Flight School in Trenton, New Jersey. In episode 4 of that series, I talked about how I broke down my decisions for the future into 2 categories, negotiables versus non-negotiables. And just so you know, this is not necessarily my idea. When I was in the Army, we used to use this thing called the Military Decision-Making Process, or MDMP, and for those of you familiar with it, you probably just cringed a little bit. But it's the step-by-step process that the Army uses to plan missions. And the one thing that stuck with me is as you get into your little planning groups, the first thing that you do when you're trying to come up with the plan for this mission is you write down facts and assumptions. Facts are the things that you just know to be true, and assumptions are things that you want to determine whether or not they're true, and eventually you want to either turn them into facts or you want to discard them totally, and they'll probably no longer be a part of your planning process. And this is so simple when you break it down. In fact, we do it all the time. For example, the other day, I went into a coffee shop and I ordered a coffee. And I told the person taking my order, I want a black coffee. That's a fact. Now, normally I don't put cream in my coffee, but on this particular day, I wanted some cream in my coffee. Now, my assumption was after I took my cup of coffee that I could probably walk down over to the little side table and there was some milk there that I could actually self-serve and put into my coffee. In the moment that I'm walking over to see if they have some milk, I am trying to determine if in fact I can do it myself or if I will have to go back to the counter and ask them to pour the milk for me. So if I could pour the milk myself, the assumption becomes a fact. But if I have to go back to the counter and they do it for me, then I'm just going to discard that assumption totally. So in the same way, non-negotiables versus negotiables are things that I take a hard stance on versus things that I'm willing to compromise. So for example, when you are deciding what aviation job to pursue, you can use this chart to assist you. And I actually use this very chart to help me determine what regional to go to, which is how I wound up at SkyWest. And then I used it again in order to go to NetJets. And then I used it again in order to finally wind up at Delta. So mine kind of looked like this. Non-negotiable, we were gonna live in northern Georgia. Other non-negotiable, I wanted to be home as much as possible. So those are the 2 things that I really focused on. I said in a previous video that commuting was kind of like a soft non-negotiable for me. I'm willing to do it, but not for long. Now, your negotiables are gonna be a lot more. For me, pay is negotiable. Domiciles are somewhat negotiable in that I am somewhat willing to commute. My 401k retirement plan is negotiable. What I fly is negotiable. How quickly I upgrade is negotiable. My quality of life on the road is negotiable in that when I'm home, I want to be home. And on the road, I don't really care as much, which is also kind of leads me into I don't really care where I go or where I stay overnight. That's kind of negotiable. All of these things to me are negotiable. And then these 3 are not. For me, this created an almost tangible framework that I could always come back to. And especially in the last few years, as these airline companies are coming out with shiny new contracts, that dollar sign gets tempting and it could draw you into a job that you don't really like. And as a side note, when you're making these negotiables versus non-negotiables, I would really encourage you to get your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, or family involved because you really want their buy-in as well. But once you establish those negotiables versus non-negotiables, as you're looking for jobs, you're looking for the job that matches really what you want. And as you begin to narrow it down a little bit more, you begin to vary some of those negotiables. So for example, let's say you're looking at 2 different airline jobs and both of them are very similar across the board, but job number 2 has a much better 401k or retirement plan. So now that negotiable, which is your retirement plan that you had in that category, moves over more into a non-negotiable because you think to yourself, I want a good retirement. So you pursue job number 2 with a little bit more of a fervor. That's how you narrow down your focus. And honestly, that's why I don't really understand when a lot of pilots will dog on each other for their job choices. So for example, let's say you meet a 25-year-old that just got a job at Delta and he knows someone that's been in a regional for 20 years. And he thinks to himself, why is this dude still flying in the regionals, and starts just dogging on him. I can't believe he's still there. What a loser. Why won't he leave? Yada, yada, yada. Well, maybe that regional guy has developed a great life for his family, geographically lives where he wants to, and has determined that seniority for him is a non-negotiable because he gets all the trips that he wants and he has a great quality of life on the road and at home. If he can fall back onto that every time, then honestly that 25-year-old dude at Delta just needs to shut up, in my opinion. The regional guy seems to have all his ducks in a row, and yeah, he might not make as much money, but perhaps he has a great quality of life, his kids see him all the time, and he's happy. And unfortunately, I have seen guys that had a great thing going and quit their job, quit their seniority, all that for the shiny new contract. Now they don't get all the trips they want, they're gone all the time, they're on reserve, and they become disgruntled. If you don't have a firm foundation to stand on, there's a pretty good chance you could make a poor decision and eventually regret it. So if you're new and you're starting the job search, or if you're looking to upgrade or switch to a new job, you want that firm foundation to make your decisions because it gives you something to fall back on, and you can rest assured that whatever decision you're making is best for you, your family, and your career. And that's it for this one. I'll do a part 2 where I'll talk about another chart that I use that really helped me in my decision-making process. Until the next one, see you guys later.